I think I'm seeing the future.
New York City's a whole new level of crazy these days.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and I'm about to watch and react to the new trailer for Madam Web. So, just to give you some background on this movie and like the character and some other stuff, I'm going to tell you like where I'm at before I see this. Madam Web, for me, Madam Web has never been like a character who could support her own line of comics or anything like that. She's like this old lady in the comics. She was, well, not an old lady later on, but like throughout the 70s and stuff, she was always this old lady who could sense things to the web of life and destiny. And like me, you probably mostly remember her from the Spider-Man animated series where she like sent Spider-Man into the multiverse and some other stuff like that. Okay, so then why are we getting a Madam Web movie? Well, Doug, that is an excellent question. So Sony, a long time ago, got the rights to Spider-Man and all Spider-adjacent characters, and frankly, they got them very, very cheap because Marvel sold them when they were in bankruptcy, this whole other story. So, and a lot of you probably already know that. Then, you know, they made the Raimi movie, it was good, but back then, like, people would make 2-3 movies, and then you were done, and then it was, you know, they thought, okay, well, the franchise is done, and the rights would revert back to Marvel, but instead, Sony rebooted with The Amazing Spider-Man so they could keep onto the license, because the license says that you have to keep like making Spider-Man movies or adjacent movies like this one in order to hold on to the license. And then when the Avengers happened, Sony got the idea, okay, well, we could have our own Avengers. Look at this, like thousands of Spider-Man characters. So basically, any character that like mainly or first appeared in a Spider-Man comic, right? Well, not first appeared, but like that mainly appeared in a Spider-Man comic. So Spider-Man villains, Spider-Man characters like Aunt May and Mary Jane, all those people, they're technically Spider characters that Sony has the film rights to motion picture rights to make movies of. So there was a period there where Sony was just like when the Sony email hack happened, when North Korea hacked into Sony's emails in retaliation for that movie, The Interview, some ridiculous things were released. Like they were going to do an Aunt May prequel about the Amazing Spider-Man Aunt May. Like in the comics, I don't know. In the comics, like Spider-Man's parents were spies. Maybe they were going to do that. Who even knows? Who even cares? So they keep doing these adjacent Spider-Man films. Now, Venom was the first one they did, and Venom was obviously a huge hit. At the time, I remember tweeting, gee, I wish so many people weren't watching Venom. It's going to hurt the chances of Spider-Man staying in the MCU. Because basically, Sony would probably rather just have their own Spider-Verse, you know? Now, it's interesting now that like the Marvel name is a little bit more tainted. Like the brand isn't trusted as much. It's interesting to see Sony still having to roll out all of these like Marvel adjacent projects like Madam Web and Kraven. And by the way, I didn't really cover the Kraven trailer when it came out. My feeling on the Kraven trailer is, why are you doing a Kraven movie? You should be doing Kraven as a Spider-Man villain. Spider-Man has one of the best rogues galleries of any comic book character. Like Steve Ditko and Stan Lee banged out banger after banger after banger in those early issues. Like every single issue of early Amazing Spider-Man was introducing a new character, a new villain that was colorful and distinct. And we haven't seen Kraven in a movie. We haven't really seen Hobgoblin in a movie. We haven't seen the Chameleon. There's like a million. We haven't seen Spider-Man face off against the Kingpin, and he started off as a Spider-Man villain. That's where I'm at. Like, I think that keep these in Spider-Man, keep Spider-Man in the MCU where he can have fun with all these other characters too. So I personally, I enjoyed, you know, Venom and Venom 2 for what they were. I don't like that they're doing these. However, Marvel has shown, the MCU Marvel has shown that like the uniformity of house style can hurt their films. Like you see DC taking big risks with projects like the Joker and the Batman, and it's really fun to see those and to see different styles. So maybe Sony doing a Madam Web movie is actually going to be good. Maybe just like taking a fresh directorial approach on this is great. However, we all remember Morbius, and more importantly, we remember Morbius's morbid attempt to connect to a larger universe with that awful Vulture post-credit scene.
I'm still figuring this place out, but I think a bunch of guys like us should team up.
So the question is Madam Web going to be like some auteur's take on this psychic character who can see through the multiverse, or is it going to be Sony ever so slightly trying to like connect all of their characters together to form a Sinister Six? I am excited to find out, and we are going to start watching this right now. It's weird how they do this, how they have like trailers for the trailer in front of the trailer. I don't know. Okay, here we go. I presume this is Madam Web.
Hey, come on. Get your stuff.
Oh, okay. There is a Spider-Man in this, and she's immediately, okay, cool. That was neat. I've never seen that in a Spider-Man movie before where he flips and he's on the ceiling. Spider-Man is the bad guy. She can already fight. She dies. So that's her having a vision of what happens if she goes in the diner. Okay, got it. Sorry about the live narration and me figuring out what would have been revealed. Okay, we're in New York.
people who were running out of it. Until one moment changed everything.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so pause for just a second. So she has a near-death experience, then she sees her first visions, which is the thing people talk about, like, it's in fiction a lot, where you die, you almost die, you have near-death experience, you can see things. I saw a baby in there, and it looked like a Spider-Man mask. Nope, it's just seaweed that looks like a Spider-Man mask. Continue. Is that Adam Scott?
I don't understand what's happening.
Wait, no, that's not Adam Scott. They're not going to put Adam Scott in Madam Web.
He's gonna die. I think I'm seeing the future.
Newspaper, I gotta go back and look. A new record, okay, I don't know what that is. Sports stuff, who cares?
New York City's a whole new level of crazy these days.
Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, so this guy must be the evil Spider-Man from earlier, that's fine.
New York City's a whole new level of crazy these days.
I'll say, I'm digging showing visions from the person's point of view and showing like the rewriting of time. It's kind of like the ending of, spoiler alert for Twilight, for Breaking Dawn Part 2. A lot of people don't like that there was this big fight that turned out to be a vision. I really liked it. I kind of like this like time slippy thing they're doing. Into that.
What's going on? I can see the future. Oh, what the hell? She didn't see that coming? That's not how it
Yeah, hilarious.
I've seen that man before. So who is he? Ezekiel Sims.
Oh, cool.
Amazon with my mom.
All right, all right.
Researching
Ezekiel, this is awesome. Ezekiel's a character from the comics who, geez, how do I even explain this? From the J. Michael Straczynski run, Ezekiel was basically, there's this group of people who go through the multiverse killing spider people. It's what the original Spider-Verse comics were about. Ezekiel's this guy who like tries to help Peter Parker and keep that from happening to him. And he was a Spider-Man in a different reality, and that's him. Okay. Neat.
spiders right before she died.
Wait, I recognize you. You live in my building.
You're the paramedic.
Yeah, you almost ran me over. You don't think this is weird? How we're all connected?
Honestly, like the least weird thing that's happened all day.
Oh, is that Julia Carpenter?
I think
Oh, okay. So all the different spider people from earlier are going to be spider women from different universes. So Julia Carpenter was the second Spider Woman. She came out in Secret Wars. Really cool costume. Like, love her costume. She basically like was the first to have like the black and white costume in continuity, and then Spider-Man kind of mentally copied her. Basically it's Venom's costume, but it's a lady with red hair. Cool. All right.
I can see into the future.
He's trying to change what happens. Julia, get down!
Okay, and somehow Madam Web got powers. I kind of missed that part of the origin story.
If you want to live, you have to trust me.
You know what? Even though zooming in on an eyeball is pretty cliche, I really like the way they zoomed in on it, this effect of showing the spider webs, because Madam Web's whole thing is she can see into the web of life and destiny. That's pretty cool looking.
Get ready. Now!
That's the Pepsi sign in Long Island City. That's cool. So Long Island City's in Queens. It's kind of near Peter Parker. Maybe they're going to do a thing there. Okay, so interesting. They can make anything look good in a movie trailer. I'll remind you of that. Like, people love the first trailer for Phantom Menace. I love the Phantom Menace, loved it at the time, but you know what I mean. You can hide anything in a trailer. I'll see it for work. You know what I mean? I'm kind of curious to hear what you guys think. Also, I want to hear from ScreenCrush editor-in-chief Matt Singer, because Matt wrote a book on Spider-Man. So if anybody should be excited about a Madam Web movie, it should be you. What were your thoughts on this trailer?
My reaction to the trailer, I was predominantly just slack-jawed astonishment of the world we live in. I mean, that we could exist in a universe with a Madam Web movie is absolutely mind-boggling to me. As someone who grew up as a kid, forget about writing a book about Spider-Man, just grew up reading Spider-Man comics, thinking it would be nice to one day get a Spider-Man movie. And now we've gotten to a place where not only are there multiple Spider-Man franchises ongoing, Sony is now making spin-off movies of all these characters where Spider-Man isn't even in them. It's not just a Madam Web movie. It's a Madam Web movie that doesn't have Spider-Man but does have Ezekiel in it and several other Spider Women characters. I mean, that's my reaction to the trailer, is just what a wild world we live in. Like, sometimes you become almost kind of numb to this world of constant superhero movies. But sometimes one is shaken from that stupor by the mere existence of something. And I think that's the only reaction plausible to a Madam Web movie.
Yeah, and earlier, I gave everybody the background on Sony and why they're doing these Spider-Man movies and how they're trying to do their own interconnected universe with the Sinister Six and that god-awful, completely executive scripted line that Michael Keaton threw out at the end of Morbius about we should do a team-up. I don't know where Madam Web fits into the grand plan. I was surprised to see
Grand
Ezekiel
web of life and destiny, you mean?
Exactly.
Is that perhaps what you are alluding to?
It also seems like Sony is not only riding the coattails of the MCU, they're riding the coattails of their own animated projects. Because Spider-Verse is, I mean, we could debate this in a different video. You can make a case it's the best Spider-Man movie ever made, or at least either of them. And now, okay, well, that's the best multiverse we've seen. And now Madam Web, look at them. Maybe they're going to bring in like Donald Glover's Prowler.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, again, just of all the characters that you go down the checklist of who you expect or hope one day to see in a movie as a comic book reader and a comic book fan. I mean, Madam Web, with all due respect to the Madame.
All due respect to Madam Web.
Yes, I doff my invisible cap to Madam Web. But just like, this is a character who is interesting, but it's like literally a woman just sitting in a chair. Like, this is an interesting supporting character. And the one thing I did feel in the trailer was like they're really struggling to like turn this character into an action hero. And I know that in recent years, one of the other Spider-Women characters has kind of taken the name Madam Web and has had some of the characteristics and powers of Madam Web. But it just is sort of funny that like that this person who was invented to be sort of this interesting mystical counterpoint to this very grounded hero is now the centerpiece of her own movie, and the person she was the counterpoint to exist in conjunction with is not even part of the story. And that's one of the weird things about these spin-offs, is that a lot of the characters that orbit around Spider-Man, what makes them interesting is their differences from Spider-Man and how they interact with him and the different things that they bring out of this character, the shades to whether it's Peter or maybe even now like Miles, what they bring out of that central character and how they give us ways to explore that central character. Well, now we're just taking those those characters that existed to sort of like illuminate aspects of those characters, and we're trying desperately to blow them up to a place where they can carry their own movie. And maybe they will succeed. I hope they do. But I'm just, again, my reaction is general one of like shock and amazement that we have gotten to this place financially, creatively, where such a thing not only could exist, but that someone, or I assume many someones, at various places in the chain of command said, yes, let's make a Madam Web movie. Let's spend tens...
And let's get two up-and-coming stars, Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson. For centerpiece.
Yes, and they had to be convinced as well. And they said, yes, I will play Madam Web. I will play one of these Spider-Women. I mean, it's amazing. No pun intended. It is an amazing fact of this world that we now live in.
To your point about the counterpoints and why these characters work best as a counterpoint to Spider-Man, we didn't talk about the Kraven trailer when it came out. I think there were other things going on that day, and since my main thought on the Kraven trailer was please don't, I avoided it. what about Kraven? How is Kraven a counterpoint? Like you talked about how Madam Web is a counterpoint to Spider-Man. What is Kraven's role in that with Spider-Man traditionally, not in the film?
Well, one of the interesting things about Kraven is that, all those classic Spider-Man villains from the Stan Lee and Steve Ditko days, they're all in variations of certain themes, A lot of them have similar powers or similar origins to Spider-Man. They're connected to animals in some way. But they all have differences that, again, illuminate and make you aware of what makes Peter and Spider-Man a great hero. So in the case of Kraven, he has all these animal powers, but he uses them for his own glory and his own ego. And he uses them to become famous and be this great hunter that, loves to chase people and animals and wear a hilarious lion vest. One of the all-time great comic book costumes.
Steve Ditko, truly an inspired man.
Yes. It's a glorious, glorious, silly but wonderful costume. So that's what he provides. Like a lot of those classic, villains. He is all power and no responsibility. And he's also kind of an older character, like a lot of the early Spider-Man villains were. Peter was a teenager. Kraven, although maybe not Aaron Taylor Johnson, that Kraven was kind of this like older, kind of evil, almost authority or parental figure. When you think of those classic villains like Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, so many of them fit into that role where Peter's this teenager, he doesn't have parents, he's lost Uncle Ben, he's looking for father figures, and Kraven is another one who theoretically could potentially fit into that role as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've talked about that before, about how all these older men in Peter's life are corrupting figures to him. And there's even like, Aunt May and Adrian Toomes had a relationship. She dated Dr. Octopus. God, those comics were so great. How they would constantly like have these men infringe on Peter's personal life to really hit that father figure thing home. So Madam Web in the comics, and I'll confess, I never cared about Madam Web in the comics. I kind of think she appeared in the Broadway show, which I never made it out to see because I'm not a millionaire and I couldn't afford the tickets. What is her role in? She's mystical, and is it like in the animated series? She provides him with the multiverse, like she's his guide to that.
Well, not initially. I mean, I'm probably less familiar with the cartoon than you are. I mean, I certainly watched it as a kid, and especially the early episodes. I don't really remember the Madam Web ones as well, so maybe I had gotten a little older or missed those.
She comes in toward the end because they did like a spider crossover, and the series ends, spoiler alert for a series ended in 1996. It ends with him going off to find Mary Jane and like web slinging with Stan Lee. And I think she even gets the final voiceover in the series. She wasn't big all the way through it, just kind of at the end when they did the multiverse.
Yeah, so I mean, in the comics, her original role is less about a multiverse as it was about just bringing, again, another dimension to the character, and in her case, this mystical, supernatural, she can see the future, perhaps, element. And then that gets into all these ideas, which are interesting to consider in the world of Spider-Man, about fate and destiny and whether things are, destined to happen. A lot of the same stuff that's going on in Loki, or was going on this season in Loki, was Peter Parker destined to become Spider-Man? What would have happened to him if he hadn't been bitten by a radioactive spider? That's more of what she brings to the early appearances. Then, yes, later, as all these characters are, the interesting ones, the good ones, they constantly get, the people who appear, the writers who follow in the footsteps of these previous giants, they build on what's there. And then when there was starting to be this concept of a Spider-Verse, and we've got a web of life and destiny, and, then she could sort of serve that purpose as well. But initially, it was not necessarily about alternate realities. It was about how does Peter Parker, this grad student who's got this crazy life but is ultimately supposed to just be this average guy with a life and concerns and no money, how does he react to finding out that there's this woman who can see his future and is telling him about the web of life and destiny and all these different things? And how does this character react to this incredible person and these powers that are presented to him.
Well, we're seeing from the trailer, it looks like, with the two other Spider Women, and I don't know who the other one is supposed to be, by the way. I know Julia Carpenter, but I don't know who the other one is. Do you know who that would be in the canon?
Not sure.
No time to research. So, anyways, it looks like they're kind of doing that with her friends who get spider powers. I'm not sure how they get spider powers or how that's going to work. So there is like an element of she's mystical and they're grounded, but it's just not. Earlier I talked about Venom and how Venom was like Sony. It gave Sony all this like swagger to do a spider verse of movies, and it makes me tired. Like it just makes me sleepy because I just want Spider-Man to fight Kraven. I want Tom Holland to meet Madam Web and to do that weird mystical thing and to be connected to Doctor Strange. I just don't want these movies. Now, on the other hand, and this is where I'm really wanting to hear what you have to think. I look at DC, right? And throughout all the horrible things they've put out recently, they did carve out areas that were not tied to continuity where artists could explore their voices to much success. The Joker, Oscar-nominated film, the Batman, maybe a little long, but great Batman movie. Both were when they gave creators a chance to say, here's your playground. Marvel Studios is less likely to do that now. They're planning things well in advance. They bring in indie directors. They say, okay, here's the action sequences. It's very rare for somebody to come through like James Gunn or Joss Whedon, who actually get to write the script before the storyboards and the viz dev are finished. So something like Madam Web could be a chance for new voices to come in and to make a different kind of movie, right? A different genre movie. Is there anything about this trailer that makes you hopeful that that's going to happen here?
That specifically is going to happen? I mean, not necessarily. And I look at the people involved and they all seem talented, but there isn't like, a bold visionary in that list that that we can think of. I mean, maybe people in the audience watching disagree and they're really excited to see this movie for that reason because of someone's involvement, and that's great. I mean, again, this doesn't feel like someone taking a bold swing at the idea of a superhero movie. It seems like more like, yeah, we've got the rights to all of these Spider-Man characters, and who can we adapt without Spider-Man in it? And here there was this idea, I guess, to do not only Madam Web, but as you said, to like introduce all these Spider Women who I suppose could theoretically appear in other movies. Like it does actually seem to be more of almost like a team movie than it does a solo Madam Web movie. So
I wonder if they're setting her up to be like a Nick Fury in this universe, to pull people in from the multiverse or something and to get a team together.
That's very possible. I mean, you mentioned Doctor Strange, and like you could theoretically have almost made a version of Spider-Man No Way Home where like the Doctor Strange character was Madam Web. Like that's not, that's more of the role that she typically plays in the comics. She is really
to the multiverse.
Right, exactly. And she's not generally or almost ever a central figure in any comics. She is this kind of interesting flavor that you kind of season a story with because of all the interesting and unusual things about her that's different than the more traditional superheroes. So perhaps if you can figure out a way, and if they figured out a way to make an unusual superhero movie based on this unusual character, great, maybe it'll work out. I hope it does. But, it really is about as obscure a character as has ever gotten their own movie from the world of superheroes. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to think of one that is more obscure and has headlined, like, less comics than Madam Web. I don't know if you can think of one, Ryan, but like
not a one. I just know in the Dan Slott run, I know there was the younger Spider Woman who got the powers and was blind and things like that. That's about as far as my expertise goes. But I'm not as caught up on current read. I thought maybe they did something new with her. I'm not sure. I'll binge, like some people binge TV shows. I binge comics. I like to sit down with a big stack all at once. To me, it just seems indicative of this move away from making films into making content. Like, it just really does seem like to me that Sony is putting all these pieces in place, and okay, we got this guy, we got this in. I think Marvel made it look so easy that even Marvel can't really pull it off anymore. That's where I'm afraid that we're at. So, Matt, thanks for your thoughts on that. I really appreciate it. As always, you know, Spider-Man expert, I always want to hear what you have to say. Again, the book is Opposable Thumbs, How Siskel and Ebert Changed Movies Forever. It's a great read. About that much left in it. It's fantastic. Get it at bookstores and online right now. Matt, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
And we want to hear from all you guys. What did you think of the Madam Web trailer? What do you think of the Sony Spider-Verse? Is it going to eclipse the MCU? Should it go away forever? Are you pumped about the Kraven movie? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below or at either of us on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.